Okay, so hey guys, welcome back to another Access 72 video, and in today's video I'm back with another interview, and I'm here with Cobra, Kai Richmond. Kai, how are we, mate?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on today, and for anybody who may not know, am I right in saying you're a 4-on-1 lightweight who's 23?
You'll be correct.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, well, we'll start with the question, which I always like to start off with. A little bit different for you. Am I right in saying you have a little bit of a kind of combat sports? That's where you started off, and I suppose why did you start kind of combat sports in general?
I started training when I was 11-year-old, going to different boxing gyms and kickboxing gyms, and I found my home in an MMA gym in Ferry Hill, and I fell in love with that sport then. I'd always favoured the striking side of it, so as I got a bit older and got a bit more experience, I fell into professional boxing where I'm at now.
No, it's amazing the seemingly kind of route that you did go down. Obviously it's a common route, but you know, the way that you've made it work has been very impressive. And I suppose, do you remember that of your first kind of MMA fight?
Yeah, I remember everything about it. I was a 12-year-old.
Really? Wow. How did it go down then?
I got my ass whooped for 3 rounds against a lad a stone heavier than me. But it was a good learning experience, and I always came back for more, so I learned a lot about myself in that first fight.
No, that's all that matters in that first fight. And I suppose, to an extent, with you starting so young, do you feel like that's kind of only benefited you throughout the whole of your career so far?
Yeah, of course. I feel like I've got a lot of experience dealing with nerves and pressure from that early start. Like the MMA shows I was fighting on when I was young, 12, 13-year-old, they were like a proper night do show, so the lights were off, there was a big crowd, music was on. It wasn't just like a daytime sports hall show with all the lights on. It was made to feel like a professional fight. So I've dealt with that from an early age, and it just feels normal to me now.
That's amazing. It seems like that is very important with the way that this sport in general is going, I suppose, with the amount of cameras and press that fighters can get now. And so I suppose, obviously, you then went on to boxing. And do you kind of miss any elements of MMA or doing that in general?
I still keep my hand in it every now and again and do bits of training with some of the lads that I know, but I wouldn't say I miss the fighting. That's the whole reason I switched over to boxing, because I've always favoured using my hands. So I feel like this is the sport I was meant to be in, and I've made the right choice. So I don't miss the fighting aspect of it, but I do still keep my hand in it and do a bit of jiu-jitsu and wrestling every now and again.
Brilliant. And so I suppose, boxing-wise, why did you turn professional when you did?
It was just the way things played out. So I was looking for a new MMA gym, and I was getting private training off Jordan, and we just had a discussion, and we thought it just felt right for us both. We didn't just say, right, we're going to be professional and then have a fight within the first few months. You know, there was about a year and a half training before we applied for the license. So it's we fixed all the little errors that I had in my game coming from MMA to boxing, and made sure everything was right before we got through the ropes for the first time.
No, of course. And obviously you went on that of a upcoming prospects run of going, I believe, 4-0, and then you suffered your defeat as of recent. And I suppose not to ask the question of what you've learnt from it, because that's kind of my next question, but to ask, how did it feel? How did you take the defeat?
Yeah, that's the first time I've been beaten. I would say 5 or 6 years. From my last MMA fight, I was beaten. I can't remember when it was. It might have been 2018. The last time I was beaten was 2017. So it did sting a bit, but I know the reasons why I did get beaten, and a lot went on in camp leading up to that. So yeah, I know the reasons why I got beaten in that fight, and it's not nice to have the one on your record, but I definitely took a lot more from it than if I won, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and then like I said, leading on to my next question, what would you say, not to obviously give too much away, but what would you say you have learnt from that defeat?
I learned that you can't do a training camp half-assed and expect the same outcome as your other fights, especially with an opponent like who I was in there with. As you know, that wasn't the opponent I was meant to be fighting on that night. It was a last-minute change, and we thought, we're here now, so we're not going to say no. Like, I'll never say no to anything like that. So, but yeah, the main thing I've learned is that, and you need to keep your head in and be 100%. And if you're not 100% and your head isn't right in for the fight, then maybe you should think about pulling out and having a bit of time until your head is back in it.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, a lot of fighters that are top level fighters, you go onto their records, and quite often they have suffered that kind of early defeat, even when they are like you yourself, just kind of starting out. And you know, it shows that there is so much you can learn from it, and how far that can take you. And I suppose, to an extent, fighters who possibly protect their record and don't even accept the kind of acceptance of losing a fight and having that one on it or whatever. Do you feel like that is a little bit, you know, possibly frustrating at times, where it's like, you know, like it's proven that it does help so much?
Yeah, I feel like as long as you take lessons away from a loss, then it hasn't done you that much harm. Although I know boxing is a sport where people are very protective over their own, but I feel like because I come from that MMA background where like fighters just fight each other and you always fight someone at the same level, and if you get a loss, it doesn't matter. You can be straight back to where you were, and everyone forgets about it. Whereas I feel like in boxing it does hurt your career a little bit more, but it isn't the end. Just because you've been beat once, it isn't the end of your career. And especially when it's in your early stages like I am, I feel like a totally different fighter coming into this fight. And I'm ready to get back in the win column.
Of course. And before we get speaking about this upcoming fight of yours, currently wise, I suppose, what would you say is that of your main motivation for boxing?
It's a hard question to answer that. It's fighting in general, and it's just been my entire life since I've been 11-year-old. So it's just like why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why do you have dinner? It's just feel like it's just part of my daily routine. And there's been times when I've thought, like, is this it? I don't want to do this anymore. And I've thinking, right, I'm going to have a couple of weeks off the gym, and I have 3 or 4 days off, and I feel like find myself climbing the walls. Like I need to go to the gym and to do something. I've just accepted that it's just who I am.
No, that's brilliant, and it's nice to see that you do have that kind of enjoyment for it, and that's the most important thing to an extent. And moving on to that of your next fight, March 16th, I believe, on a Job's Boxing Promotions show. Overall, how's preparations been going?
The best I've ever felt for a fight, the best I've ever been in camp, the best I've ever sparred, the fittest I've ever been. I feel like a total new version of myself this year, and I'll be very, very surprised if I don't come away with a win on that night, because I am the best version of me.
That's amazing, and I mean, it is a very tough test, and going into it to possibly become that of an area champion. And do you possibly feel like with that defeat, your opponent possibly maybe to an extent overlooking you, but would that possibly work in your favour if they are?
Maybe. Well, that's a question you might have to ask him. I'm sure he's confident coming into this. He's got a clean record, but he's never really been in there with anyone to cause him any trouble, so my record might be a little bit patchier. However, I have fought a more credible opponent. But all that matters on the night is who turns up and who the better man is there and then. And I'm sure we'll find out.
Totally. No, I'm very excited for the fight. Obviously, like I say, it's for an area title. And I suppose, how important, do you know how important that title is, and how much would it mean to you to become an area champion?
Of course, to become an area champion within only 3 years of being in boxing. Like, I've never had an amateur boxing fight, so it would be some achievement to become an ordinary title holder with only 3 years in the sport. And with this win under my belt, I know it can potentially open a lot more doors further down the line, some bigger shows, bigger titles, bigger fights, and that's what we want. So I'm really excited for this one.
Most definitely, and credit to you. Like I say, I mean, often fighters, like we've kind of been talking about, can often pad their records to 10, 12 and 0 at times, and I suppose, is it credit to yourself to an extent to say that you are willing to take the tough challenges and you're wanting to take these tough challenges?
Yeah, like I say, I think it comes from the MMA background that I'm from, where I would jump in with anyone from being 12-year-old. If I got asked to fight someone, I would say yeah. I wouldn't even ask who he was or what his record is. I would say yeah and ask all them questions later. I find I get more out of when I'm more out of camp, more out of myself when I know there's a challenge ahead. I found the first four of my boxing fights, I found it really hard to get up for it in camp because I feel like I know I'm going in there and I know 99.9% of the time I'm going to beat these people. And that might not be the right attitude, but I find that when I've got a tough opponent in front of me and a fight that I feel I need to win, then everything changes. In camp, every training session is 100% focused on that opponent and that fight, and I feel like I've really got the grips of myself this camp.
That's amazing. You hear a lot of fighters talk about that kind of need to be up for a fight to an extent, and it seems like you're more than up for this fight, and it's amazing to hear. And I suppose for anybody who maybe hasn't watched you and maybe coming to watch you for the first time for this fight, what would you say makes yourself interesting as a fighter?
I would say that in my 28 or 29 fights, I think that's about the amount of fights I've had in total. I don't think I've ever been in a boring fight, never ever. And the harder the opponents get and the more rounds, obviously this one's a 10-rounder, it's more rounds of action. You'll never walk away from one of my fights, especially as the competition picks up and say that was boring, because I'll make sure it isn't. You never walk away out the gym in a spa being and say it was boring. I just bring excitement.
That's amazing, and that's what prospects need, and that's what sells tickets. And like I say, it's amazing to hear. And obviously, nobody wants to overlook a fight. You don't want to overlook this fight. Like you say, it's like we mentioned, it's a very big fight for you. But obviously, you're going to have future ambitions. And what would you say they are for boxing?
That's another hard question to answer, because I feel like every individual person, different things happen to every individual people. So I'm trying not to look ahead of this one. 100% of my focus is on getting this belt and winning this fight in good fashion. And whatever doors open after this, I'll deal with as and when they come. Overall, it'd be a dream come true to be a British champion one day. That is one of the main goals. But for immediately after this fight, I don't really know. We're just going to get through this one and see what presents itself.
Indeed, no, it's a very good mindset, that. And to, I suppose, move away a little bit from boxing now, I appreciate your time here today, and I kind of want to shine a light on what you're doing with your own brand. You've got Allure Sports, from what I believe, and just to kind of start off with a question about that, and how did that kind of come about, and you owning that brand?
Yeah, so me and my girlfriend started it in 2020 in lockdown. It was Gymshark had just turned over the first billion, and we were like, we could have a crack at this. I was off work, she was off work, we weren't doing anything, and we thought, let's just try something. And to be honest, for the first couple of years, it was just dead in the water, nothing was happening. And then from, I'd say, the start of last year, that's when things started to pick up, and then since then it's just snowballed, and everything's getting really busy now, and it's really starting to pick up.
That's amazing. It looks like a very top quality brand, and I appreciate the hard work you've done as an independent type brand that hasn't really got, I suppose, to an extent, a massive backing, and and how you have built it up. And like I say, it's very impressive. And what do you feel like the future kind of lies for the brand as a whole?
I feel like there's no ceiling on it, to be honest. If you'd have told me and Molly that we would be where we are now this time last year, we wouldn't have believed you. It's the growth in the past year has been like amazing. We would never have expected it. So I don't know where it's going to be this time next year. I really feel like there's absolutely no ceiling on where to go.
No, it's amazing, and like I say, I feel like you've been mentioning, there is no ceiling, and I think it is going to go far as a brand, and that's why I thought I'd mention it. And another topic. I mean, I've seen on your Instagram, you've had you try a little bit of interviewing yourself, of speaking to Jordan on your Instagram. How did you find being the kind of other person asking the questions?
Yeah, it was quite a funny one. I was quite nervous. I don't really get nervous for interviews when I'm getting asked the questions. I find they're a lot easier, and you haven't really got to think as much. You just say what you think when you get asked the question. But that one was a bit funny. We'd done some t-shirts for Jordan. I don't know if you've seen them, those t-shirts. So we were going down to drop them off, and we thought we should just get some content for the page, and I might start doing a few interviews myself. So I actually found I did a lot better than I thought, although I did come out and, for some reason, I don't know why, say that he fought for a world title against Kiko Martinez. As soon as it left my mouth, I was like, you fucking tit. Came out, but other than that, I thought it went really well, and might be a little bit of a natural with it.
Mm-hmm. No, of course, it did look, especially for that of, was it your first interview?
It was my first interview, yes. Not much rehearsal for it either. Mm-hmm. So I had a few questions written down on my phone, but other than that, it was all pretty natural.
No, of course. I mean, it's a lot more natural than my first interview. I mean, I've been doing it for a little while now, and my first one was absolutely awful. So, it's good to see that, you've had that experience, and so, like you say, you do seem like a bit of a natural for it.
He was, I would say he was an easy first interview, because he gave very detailed answers. He was, when we walked into the gym, he made us feel very welcome, and was easy to talk to, so he was a good first person interview.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose for his fight coming up with Zelfa Barrett, do you think he's going to win that one?
It's a very good fight. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see it going either way, but no one gave Jordan a look in the fight against Conlon, so I don't see why he can't go out and do this one. Mm-hmm. He deserves it. He's a really nice lad. I like him.
And I suppose with you kind of doing this stuff for fighters and, using your clothing brand and getting that out there, is there, future plans to maybe utilise with more fighters and other companies?
Yeah, of course. We're open to work with any fighter if it's right. The thing with the t-shirt for Jordan was a good foot in the door in boxing. Obviously, our brand is a lot more MMA based. Mm-hmm. But it was good to get a foot in the door with Jordan, getting there with the boxers, and hopefully it's being good publicity to get our brand seen by this side of the combat sports world.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely, and I'll leave with this final question. Like I say, I appreciate your time here today, and for any fighter that comes on the channel, I always like to kind of open the floor up to them and see if there's anything that they'd like to promote or shout out.
If there's anything I would like to promote or shout out. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Little Sports. Mm-hmm. And all my sponsors. There's too many good stuff, but you know who you are.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely, good stuff. Well, I appreciate you very much here today, like I've mentioned, and best of luck with this upcoming fight, and I'll be keeping my eyes closely on it, and like I say, maybe a little bit further along down the line we can come back and see how things have changed and have another chat.
Perfect, yeah, of course.
Brilliant. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you did indeed like the video, and thanks.